Good morning and welcome to American Government here at Seaside High School. Today we will be talking about Section 1 in Chapter 5, Political Parties and What Do They Do. First, let's look at the objectives, what we will try to learn today. What is a political party? So we will be discussing what are the factors that go into what a political party does. At this point, I would like you to take 30 seconds and predict with your partner what a political party does. Start now. You have 10 seconds. And returning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, welcome back. So you've had a chance to talk with your neighbor about what a political party does. Raise your hand if you feel like you heard something from your neighbor that you had not heard before. Okay, great. Either way, we are very well educated, or we did learn something new. Let's move on to the next objective. What are the major functions of a political party? These are the things that a political party does. So in this particular section, we will define those things. Quickly, with your neighbor, let's guess how many functions you would find within a political party. This could be anywhere from 1 to, say, 10. Take a second, tell your neighbor, and we'll come back in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll see a little bit later if your prediction was correct. What is a political party? Now this one might surprise you a great deal, as most of us believe that a political party is a group of people that are out there trying to run government based on the similar beliefs that we have as individuals. A political party, in fact, here in the United States is a group of persons who seek to control government by winning elections and holding office. This doesn't sound very democratic, as again, we're looking for someone that's kind of representing the will of the people. But political parties were not part of the framers' original plan to put together our government. They evolved out of two contrasting versions of how government should be created. So, quickly, if we could think back, what are those two contrasting philosophies that were present at the creation of the Constitution? Well, let's take 20 seconds and talk with your neighbor, and let's see if we can come up with the answer. Go. And we're coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Quickly, could someone volunteer one of the two philosophies or parties that sprang about at the creation of the Constitution? Thank you. If you said Federalists or Anti-Federalists, you were right on target. Basically, we had two different groups of people that wanted to run government. Some wanted the states to be more powerful and the federal government to be less powerful. Those were called the Anti-Federalists. And the others were wanting the national government to have more control over the states, and those folks were called the Federalists. Those two philosophies and ideals have evolved over the last 230 plus years into the Republicans and the Democrats, two major political parties that we have today. Parties can be principle-oriented, issue-oriented, or election-oriented. as we just discussed, the last one here, election-oriented, describes the Republicans and the Democrats. Their main focus is to find a person that can win the election and then hold on to that office as long as possible. If you look back over the last couple of presidential elections, and we go back to the election of 1992, Bill Clinton ran against George Bush. Bill Clinton was a Democrat. George Bush was a Republican. We'll bring in Ross Perot, who was the Reform Party candidate, a little bit later in our lecture. As the election unfolded, Bill Clinton, who was the Democratic Party, did not have control of the presidency. That was held previously by George Bush and then Ronald Reagan for 2 terms prior to that. So the Republicans had had some control for 12 years. Now the Democrats come in, and their campaign was predicated on change. We're going to change what's happening in government. We're going to make your life better. That may sound somewhat familiar to those of you who just lived through the election here in 2016. Bill Clinton wins the election, and he also wins, or the Democrats themselves win, the House and the Senate. So they have full control of 2/3 of the branches of government. As we fast forward a little bit to the presidential election of 1996, the Republicans select Bob Dole, who is a person that has lots of experience in government, but not necessarily the most charismatic. The Democrats' choice in Bill Clinton, the incumbent, an incumbent is a person who is currently holding office and is running for re-election. Bill Clinton, very charismatic individual, and was able to lead the Democratic Party and win the 1996 election. Bob Dole didn't really stand much of a chance, as, again, this election kind of came down to what was the charismatic qualities of the candidates. So if we then move ahead to the 2000 election, the Republicans went out and they looked for someone that can compete against the charismatic individuals that were running for the presidency under the Democratic Party. Al Gore, who was the vice president under Bill Clinton, was going to be running for the Democrats. That was pretty much decided early on in the presidential election. There wasn't much competition from other Democrats. Al Gore seemed to be the successor. The Republicans went out and found George W. Bush, who had been a governor in Texas, so had a little bit of governmental experience, but not nearly as much as Al Gore, especially in Washington, D.C. Again, just to remind you, the political parties are looking to win the election. It's not so much about if they are going to represent their party the way the majority of their party wants to be represented. They want to get control of government first, and then they'll work on trying to make sure that they satisfy their party's needs. George W. Bush came across as a very easygoing, almost like the neighbor that you would walk across the street to and ask to borrow a cup of sugar or some gasoline for your lawnmower, or if you were out changing a tire in your car, they would stop by and want to help you out. Very personable, very just kind of that average American citizen type of persona, which was the opposite of the Bill Clinton, who came across as an extreme intellectual, and Al Gore, who made himself to be a very Washington insider, intellectual type of person. George Bush wins the election, and the electorate, which the electorate are the people who vote in the election, the electorate voted for George Bush because their campaign was predicated on change. Very much like the 1992 election, The Republicans said we need to tell people that we want to change in what's going on, and therefore they will vote for us because George Bush seems more like the average American than Al Gore did. Al Gore came across as someone who was very rooted in politics in Washington, D.C., and that didn't really mesh very well with what citizens wanted in that particular time period. So we move forward now in 2004. The Democrats are trying to present this change mentality when they put John Kerry up, the incumbent George Bush. There's that word again, incumbent. That is the person who is currently holding office and is going to be running for re-election. John Kerry loses the election, and that takes us then into 4 more years with George W. Bush. In 2008, current President Barack Obama runs in a campaign of change against the Republican Party, wins the election, and then is able to carry on for 8 years. When you look at the 2016 election, here again you have an election of the establishment in Clinton, Hillary, and the unestablished Trump, Donald, and this particular election really played into the idea of change once again. So that seems to be the constant in our elections, is the idea that if we elect new people to office, that we will foster greater change. So that, looking at that election-oriented, that seems to be really the focus. The 2 other pieces with political parties here are principle-oriented and issue-oriented. Principle-oriented is going to be much more like a philosophy, like a socialism or a communism. And issue-oriented are looking at a specific thing, like, say, the environment with the Green Party. Their whole focus is to improve the environment. They're not really too concerned about what's going on in areas that don't have a direct impact on improving the environment. So let's take a formative assessment here and answer this question. So you will need your A, B, C, and D cards out. What is the definition of a political party? Is it A, to express the will of the people through government? Is it B, a group of people who have the same ideas and values as in the party? C, a group of people who seek to control government by winning elections? Or is it D, office holders who control their party? Okay, ready? And respond. Hold up your cards. It's a little different today because I'm not here, so let's look around and let's see where we're at. We're going to pause the lecture at this point for just a second. Make sure everybody has the right letter. If you do not, make sure you're communicating with each other, and let's discuss this and make sure we get everybody on the same page. The correct answer is C, a group of people who seek to control government by winning elections. What do parties do? There are 5 functions of the political party. So going back to our objective earlier in the day, did you guess 5? Did you guess 3? Did you guess 2? Those 5 functions are nominating candidates. It's where the party goes out and recruits candidates, much like I explained where the Republicans recruited George W. Bush. Inform and activate supporters. This is where the party will get out and actually campaign and provide people with information about their political party. Acting as a bonding agent is basically a guarantee that their candidate is worthwhile. Just like the Republicans used Donald Trump this year. No political experience, but because he was a Republican, people felt that he was worthy of office. To govern, that's where they're going to represent their party in government in those elected positions. And the last one is the act as a watchdog, where the party that's in power is constantly being watched over by the parties that are not in power to make sure that everything they do is within the rights